How's everybody doing? You're one of the most beautiful places in the whole world. You know, I keep it Monday with my wife, and we've spent the last 2 days here. And it's pretty amazing that we probably have seen less than half the people here from the United States. People come from all over the world to see these spectacular hoodoos, right, as you go through the process. So enjoy your time here. Let's make this fun as we go through the process today, all right? Okay, so Utah Safety Council, we have a lot of different things. You notice we take care of occupational, traffic, emergency care, and home and community. You'll see us a lot more out there. You're going to see a lot more things going on with the Utah Safety Council, as we really want to be part of the community and part of who you are to help you and everyone else be safe and go through the process. So, let's see if this is on. There we go. All right, so we're going to talk about risk. I want you to take a look at, think about the risk that you have in your life. And it's probably, maybe it's hard to see, but if you look at these things here, these are all crocodiles waiting for this particular skydiver to land. You ever feel like this in your operation sometimes? Got a lot of things going on. Okay, so again, I want you to think a little bit about what risk management is, and maybe about risk as you go through, maybe help you get a different perspective on the people that you deal with and what they're thinking, because I'm sure that wasn't his plan, at least I would hope it wasn't his plan. So to land right there, and maybe some miracle happened. I have no idea. I just thought it was a pretty fun picture. Don't know the results, don't want to know the results. So, the mission of the Utah Safety Council is to save lives by promoting safety, health through education, services, and products. And then that's who we are. So, let's get started. How many of you maybe look like this morning before you came home for breakfast? I don't want to know. I really don't. But maybe some of you kind of look like this as you go through. But guess what? We're in a fun place. Let's make sure you enjoy the time that you have. So, we're going to talk about risk. How many of you think you're safe drivers? Let me raise your hand. How many think you're safe drivers? Okay, all right, cool. How many think everybody else on the road is an idiot? I mean, okay, because that's kind of what it is. I bet if you went and asked them, they'd think, I'm a safe driver. Okay, everybody takes risk at their own level. So that's one of the things we want to talk about and get you to understand as you're working with the people and you see the things they're doing, you're thinking, what were they thinking? Can't figure this one out. So let's talk about risk and what it is. Who's involved in risk? Who's involved in risk? Okay, yep, you all got up out of bed this morning, you came here, you took a risk that have some kind of benefit coming on, or maybe you just wanted to get paid. I don't know what the thing was, but hopefully it was something worthwhile to you, right? Okay? And we're going to talk about how to maybe a couple of options about managing risk, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the managing risk, because each one of your own operations probably has a way that they're going to manage the risk, but there are a lot of options out there, a lot of proven techniques that make a huge difference as you go through. So as you go through and you talk about risk, does this look like it'd be something risky if you want to go swimming? Yeah, it's the bottom of American Falls in Niagara Falls. I took this picture. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be tubing down this particular place, you know, as you go through. So let's talk a little bit about risk, because one of the things you talk about is how frequently do you have risk in your life? How frequently do you think you encounter risk? Every day, or probably multiple times, if not all the time throughout the day, right? So, how do you manage a risk like this? What would you do? Stay away from it? Okay, and how many people do you know, think about this, would think that would be fun just to try and swim down that or tube down that or do something else? You know anybody that would have that kind of thinking? Well, there's been quite a few people who've tried to go over the falls. You've probably heard about that in the Niagara Falls. And there have been less than half of them survive. But they all have these great plans. So people take risks at different levels. For me, This was about as close as I was going to get, standing on this platform, taking a picture. That was plenty close for me at my risk acceptance level. Okay? The risk is everywhere, is it not? There's some beautiful things. You're going to go out here at Bryce Canyon. Oh, absolutely beautiful. But if you get too close to the edge, risk. In fact, it was interesting. My wife and I were there last night looking at the stars and things. It's pretty cool because you can see like almost 8,000 or so stars out there, which at home I can't see hardly anything because of the lights. But we were out there and we were waiting for the dusk getting darker, and we're looking and we seen some old poles where they used to have poles and they cut them off. And this back about 8 feet now to where they have the new rails. So somebody decided that risk was too great having the things out there and they moved it back. So think about that as you do things in your life. What about risk? So what is risk? So risk is exposure or the possibility of getting injured. Okay? You have most of these handouts in your slides there, but really it's the possibility that something bad or unpleasant will happen. Okay? Most people just think of risk as just a probability of something happening. Okay? How many of you like taking risks in your life? Okay? I used to take a lot of risk in my life, and then I either got smart or matured or whatever, and cause I think back to things I did when I was 19 and 20 years old. Did you do things different back when you were 19 or 20? I mean, I climbed inside live volcanoes just because I thought it was a fun thing to do. Okay? Is that a risk you would like to take today? Anybody? Not me. They're fun to look at from the outside. I don't go inside of them anymore. I don't walk along the lava domes, which I did, and did the things. And you was a bunch of crazy of us. We actually went out and played soccer on the lava domes inside the live volcano. Risk? So there's things that happen. So as you get a little bit older, maybe the risk gets better. Think about your risk when you're talking about your retirement plan. You put more into stocks and bonds now, or do you put more into more sure things? So as you go through, your risk level changes. But so does everyone else's. So let's talk about that. So how safe is safe enough? How safe is safe enough for you to be driving out on the road? What's your risk of driving out on the road? Even if you're the best driver in the world, and I got to tell you, in my experience, we all think we're better drivers than we actually are. That's just think about it. We all think we're better drivers than maybe we actually are as we go through. I teach safe driving, so hopefully I've corrected a lot of things I used to think were safe driving, and now I know it's probably not. So how safe is safe? How about 99.9%? Is that safe enough? Okay, let's take a look. If that's safe enough or good enough, then 12 newborns, these are United States numbers, so 12 newborns each day is going to be given to the wrong parents. Okay. 114,500 mismatched pairs of shoes are going to be shipped each year. Okay? And that's why some people are, no, that's okay. But you have different things happen. If 99.9% is good, 2.5 million books each year is going to be produced with the wrong covers on them. So you're going to buy a book that says The Tale of Two Cities, and it's going to be a Harlequin romance. Probably not what you're looking for inside the cover, right? Okay, or maybe it is what you're looking for, and you're, I don't know. But anyway, as you go through the process, that's what would happen. 4 crashes or flights every day. Do we have 4 crashes a day? Not in the United States to do not, and that's great. But that would be quite a few as you go through the process. 880,000 credit cards in circulation will have the wrong information on them. So if we're talking about 99.9%, is that good or is that bad?
Sounds bad.
Yes. Okay. It sounds great. And if I could ever get there, I would take it. But that's still the things that are left over as you go through the process. And 20,000 incorrect prescriptions would be written and distributed every year. Okay? 400 pacemaker operations would be performed incorrectly, put in wrong every year. Okay, so what is your acceptance level? Let's talk about what is your acceptance level a little bit. Okay, so to help you maybe visualize that, I started out when I was doing this, and I had this 1 in 10, but so these are all the same color except for one. Can you see that? Okay, so every time this here one comes to the top, that's the chance you just took. You got bit, you got an injury, whatever happened in your life. Now this is 1 out of 20. 1 out of 10, didn't even cover. You couldn't hide that one no matter what you did. Okay, so what about 1 out of 100? Okay, this is 1 out of 100. You see anything different? Okay, but I can shake this up and I can move this around. It's another day and whoo, looks good, right? So if I shake it up a little bit more, uh-oh. Every time you can see that, there's a problem. So if you look at your chances, what are your chances? And I was going to do 1 in 1,000, but I didn't do 1 in 1,000. I couldn't find a container that I could actually hold that wouldn't feel like spilling all over. So this is 1 in 500. Again, in here, you see anything exciting? They all look good. So if I shake this up, so every time you roll this up and shake this up, are you okay or are you not okay? That's a way to visualize what this here looks like. It doesn't look like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 500. I'll take those risks, right? Yeah, I'll take those risks. But when that pops up to the top like that, then guess what? That's not the one you want at the top, right? So think about that as you start trying to talk to people about what risks are. Just a different way of looking at it and demonstrating what risk could look like for you. Okay? You can use that, show that a lot of different ways, but when you're trying to talk to people about risks, some visuals like this make it pretty easy. Okay, what are the risks we take? If you look at the picture, this arrow says it's going down, but this arrow says it's going up. Could that cause a problem? Okay. Now, I didn't know where we were going to be at. I didn't know if a lot of places I go to, there's a staircase coming into where we're going. So if there's a staircase, the thing I do is I stand outside and greet people that come in, but I keep track of how many of you using a hand drill. Is that really a risk? Using the hand drill, is that a risk? If you don't use it, are you taking the risk of tripping and falling? How many of you tripped and fell on stairs? I think probably everybody, right? Okay. What if you have a hand drill, you went to trip, did it save you? So how many of you use your hand drills every day? Just think about that. You don't have to lie to me. I'm just, how many of you use your hand drills every day going up and down your stairs, even in your own house? Okay, I do. That's just, I'm a safety geek. That's who I am now. I don't climb in volcanoes anymore. Don't do any of those things. Okay, I'm a safety geek.
Okay.
The Reformed.
I work for the health department. I do not use hand
Okay. But see, when you get done with that hand drill, you can go down and put some of the sanitizer on your hands. You see, the hand drill, you want to be upright when you're at the bottom of the stairs. Anybody disagree with that? That's what you want to be. You want to be standing up. So, but you look at that, and I do that. I did that at a safety conference here 2 years ago. We had 5,000 safety professionals, and at the one place I was going to, there was like 300 of them coming up the stairs. How many of them do you think used that? They're safety professionals. How many do you think used the hand drill? What do you think our percent safe was if I was counted? You're not using a hand drill as at risk, and a hand drill is safe.
5%.
It was about 40%. And I was like, guys, so I brought it up to him. I said, look, you're supposed to be modeling this out there. What? Well, yeah, but I only trip every once in a while. I only, it's only 1 in 500 times or whatever. So, are they taking and rolling the dice? What are they doing with this thing here, right? So, I tell you what, the times that you do, that it does save you, is probably worth all those times that you didn't have to use it. So that's part of the game as you go through the thing. So, was this a high risk or low risk thing using a handrail? I guess it depends on your handrail. Or if I go back to that staircase that's over, you couldn't see all of it by Niagara Falls. Would you be using the handrail there? I went down and hiked down around Thor's Hammer yesterday, down in the park. Did I use the handrail when there was as far as I went? I did. How many people do you think I see do that? Not very many. Again, probably 10% maybe are using that. But again, what are you doing? So it must be your risk acceptance level is that you're okay with not using a handrail. True? Anybody okay with that? And that's up to you. So let's see if this will work. See if we can get this done. Oops, nope, I gotta see if I can click on this and if it'll work for us. There is risk in everything we do. Whoops, that's not it. Let's see if I can get this to start. Right there. I hope. Nope. Let's see if we can get this video started. I'm not sure how. It's there.
Okay.
Let's see if it's gonna work. Okay, now we gotta know we can click on it maybe. We'll go to the middle of the screen and click on it and see if it okay. Well, okay. If it's not the first, we're okay with that.
You accepted the risk when you started.
I did. This was a risk of emailing your stuff when you have it on your own computer, right? Okay, so here's the risk. There's risk in everything you do. You'll see this guy, say he's ice fishing. And this is only about 8 to 10 second video, and then he's got something on this line, and then a whale comes up and grabs it and pulls him down. So it is pretty funny as you go through the process, but it's kind of like, is there risk in everything we do or not? Okay? And we can't get away from all the risk. There's always going to be either people or other things that are going to create us risk no matter how good we are. Okay? Always going to be risk. That was a fun picture to take too. Okay, so yeah, I take a little bit of risk once in a while when it comes to taking pictures, but that's probably as far as it goes. So, so what are the options we have? So for risk, here's what most operations do is they look at only the things that happen up here. Injuries, incidents, right? Maybe the near misses. But they don't always look at the at-risk behaviors. Okay, there was a sign about a month ago on Utah roads over the thing, and it said 93% of all crashes have human error involved. Anybody see that as they was driving? Is that true? True statement. Okay, so we're looking at this, and the only thing we're talking about is the only thing we're seeing if we're looking at this here, if this is our company management, or if this is our county management, or whoever, we look at it and we see this. But we need some people down here looking at the at-risk behaviors. They're the ones who's leading us to those things. Again, not every time you don't use a handrail are you going to be able to, are you going to get hurt? Or are you going to see that different color, right? Well, when you do, then everybody sees it. But that other 999 times or 99 times or whatever rate or whatever risk rate you're taking, they don't see these because you get away with it. Anybody ever had something to think, oh, I got away with that? A near miss, something happened, right? You saw a blade here or a knife here, and you think, ooh, whoa, man, I could have cut my finger off there without slicing that tomato, but it didn't happen. Woohoo! So, when you did that, let me ask you this, did you change the way you held the tomato? Or the potato or whatever? I bet you did. Because you thought, wow, that wasn't that risk way of holding that, and I better hold it another way. And that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about risk management. I want you to think about risk again a little bit differently than maybe you have before. But really, when we get down to it, this is where we'd like to get to. This is an iceberg. And everybody knows that icebergs are 3 to 10 times larger underneath the water than they are above the water, right? What part of the iceberg sunk the Titanic? The top half? No. Right here. So that's what's going on. That's what I want you to take a look at and maybe think about as you go through the process. So what is your level of risk acceptance, personally? Let me ask you. So I got a couple of examples here. Okay, I got this mouse trap. Got $1 in there. Anybody want to try and get the dollar out? So a risk level, you're going to get $1 out of the mouse trap. Yes? No? Anybody? Okay, so good. You have some kind of risk level management going on in your head, right? Okay. What about a $5 bill? Woo! Now you can buy lunch. Oh, well, almost lunch. Maybe a couple of sodas. $5. Anybody a risk taker on that? I mean, the thing is, what happens, it's just going to break your finger. Don't worry about it, all right? Okay. What's that? Yeah, probably more than the $5 as you're going through the process. Okay? So no takers for $5. How about 10? Woohoo! Now we got $10. Yeah, now it's getting better. Yeah, you may think about it, right? Okay, because everybody's got their own risk acceptance levels. Not just me. Everybody's got a risk acceptance level. All right, and this is the last one. It's the only one you have to take out of my wife's purse. So I'm not allowed to have any, right? So anyway, how about $20? Would you risk breaking your fingers and get $20 out of this mousetrap? That may cover your copay, and then you maybe buy a soda as well. But what is your risk level? Everybody's got a different risk level. Okay, what's one for your operations? How many of your workers would risk it for $20? I have quite a few of my workers, and they'd go back to the dollar one and be thrilled to death. Okay. All right, so let's talk about one more thing. Now we've got, this will break your hand. Every bone in your hand across the top. Would you risk it for what? Now this, for me, is a picture of 2 of my grandsons. I would risk it for them. I would risk breaking my hand to save them or help them with whatever's going on, right? But what is your level? What would you reach in this and to get something out of it? What would your workers do? What's their motivation to take a risk? So let me just open this up for just a few minutes. What would be your motivation to take a risk? What kind of reward are you talking about? Talking about getting things done faster, saving some time, saving money. What would be? Throw out a couple of things. What would you take a risk for here? No answers? A year's mortgage? What would you do for that? What kind of risk would you take to do that kind of stuff? You know, you have people who rob banks and do all that. They're thinking that risk is worth their reward if they get away with it. True? So what is your risk level? What's the risk level of your people as you talk to them and you think about it? What are you doing as you go through this process? Okay? What's your family's risk level? I have 3 children. 2 sons and a daughter. And my 2 sons probably take a lot more risks than my daughter has taken in her life. And I'm okay with that. Because you'll think about me as a parent. Do I want them to take risks or not? Yeah, I'll let them take a risk of going and moving to an apartment or going to school outside of the house or what, you know, that kind of stuff. But what do I want them to take a risk at? Do I want them to take a risk at how much they can drink and they get the college campus or what, all those things? No, that's not me. I mean, they may take risks like that and they haven't. At least not that I'm aware of. I'm okay with that. Okay, but what kind of risk would you want your kids to take? Okay, as you go through the process. Again, I do almost anything for my 2 grandsons. Well, I got 3 grandsons, and these are 2 of them, and we go to Lagoon every week. About season passes, and I take them to Lagoon 2 or 3 or 4 hours sometimes. And when we get done, we're done. I don't have to worry about getting my money's worth out of one day. We bought season passes, and every week we go to Lagoon with them, and we have a lot of fun with them. That's going to end here with school starting again, but it's good stuff, right? So risk level. Think about that. What is your risk level? You just got to internalize that. What are you willing to do? Okay. So as a safety professional, the people that are handling the safety things in your operations, what is their risk level? Is it different than yours? Is it different than your workers? Because that's really what's going to happen. Is you need to get everybody on the same level pretty much. What are you doing and how to make a difference? So how many of you are supervisors? Okay, do all your people understand what your risk level is for them? And if not, maybe that'd be a chance to, hey guys, let's talk about this. When you go out there today and you're going to be running whatever you're doing, maybe you're running the tree shredder. I don't want you to get anywhere. We got to wear your gloves. I want you to do this. Why? Is that going to help you? It does, but it really helps them the most, right? Okay. How many of you are managers? Okay. How do your people know what your risk level is? Let me ask any of you, and I don't know very many people's names, but let me ask you right. How do you know what's important to your boss? Is it Gary? Corey.
He tells me.
Exactly. So that's what it's about. How do you know what's important to your boss? How do you know what's important to your family? Ask them. Talk to them about it. Whatever you talk about, by default, it's important. You talk to your people about everything in the world, Corey? No. So you talk about the things that you think are important for the day, correct? Okay. Is safety one of those things? You don't have to answer, but is safety one of those things? Because they're not going to know that you think their safety is important. Because that's where all your claims come from, right? People doing unsafe things or having that other color of M&M come up to the top, then they're gonna suffer, and so are you. So our goal is, how do they know what's important to you? Do you tell them? I encourage you to always tell your people what's important to you, and make sure it includes something for safety, because it's really about them. As management, what's the definition of management? Management is getting things done through other people, correct? Well, if they're injured, are they doing anything for you? No. So if you really want to do your job and really take care of them, that moral obligation, just help them. Okay, it goes right down the list. The people in accounting, company president, and you get right down here to the employee. Now I'd like this to work bottom up as you go through the process. We usually get this working top down. We want to get this working bottom up. The people know what the risks are and are willing to do something. Some guy named Steve Narcup. Anybody ever heard of him? He says, where there's no involvement, there will be no ownership. If you want your people to own safety, own the risks they're taking, talk to them about it. Get them involved. Let them make some decisions and help the things that are going to go on. Hey, so how are we going to work this today? How are we going to work this machine? What are we going to do? How do you think we ought to hook this up today or whatever? Those are the things. If you get them involved, they'll own the process. They'll help you make it better. Like I tell you, in my 37 years of work in safety, and I spend very little time in the office, but when I'm in the office, everybody just thinks, oh, that's all you do is sit up there and say, you're telling us things we don't know you don't really understand what we do, correct? You never heard that? Oh, you don't really understand what we do. So, you know, in fact, when I used to go wash my hands, I'd say, what'd you do, fall down? Because I didn't think I did anything, so I must have fell down if I was going to wash my hands or something. But it's part of the game as you go through. So, roll the dice. All right. I've got some dice. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give each table a set of dice. The people on the very front tables, you'll have to just turn it around and work with your counterparts here. And I've got a matrix type for you. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Wait. Okay. So if you would take a handout and pass them down, and we're going to talk about this for just a second. But this is all about what we're doing. Where I help with safety a lot right now is with UPS. Okay, and you're on Big Brown, delivering your packages every day. Pretty cool. We have a saying there, and the saying is, safe by choice, not by chance. Okay, so we're going to try and see if we can make this safe by choice. Whenever you take one of those at-risk behaviors, one of these green M&Ms versus so every time you take one of these chances, is what happens is, if you're not doing it safely, you're just rolling the dice. That makes sense? So here's what I'd like each of you to have a chance to do. And we're going to make it a little bit of that. Each of you are going to have a chance to roll 2 dice. The first die is going to tell you what relate your probability of getting hurt. So what's your likelihood of getting hurt. Second one is going to reflect your severity. If you did get hurt, here's what it would have been. Okay, so each of you now would like, so you keep these handouts and then you write on them what you get or circle what you got. I'd like you to, now you got this set up for both injuries and crashes. Think about that as you're going down the road. What are you doing? Are you eating your sandwich while you're trying to drive? You're texting. You got earbud in, you're driving with your knee, you got a soda and a burger over here. You have no idea. Anybody seen those? Yeah, okay. I'm not going to ask you if you were one of those. I'm just going to say, yeah. Has anybody seen those? And you're here, so if you're doing that, you're using up all your green M&Ms. Pretty quick, if I was to eat all the green M&Ms, you'd only be left with the one that's going to get you. Okay, so go ahead and just take a couple of minutes here, and each of you take a chance. You may want to figure out what you're going, because these dice bounce everywhere. Okay, go ahead and circle your numbers, and then.
Oh, very well there.
1 and 5.
1 and 5. So 1, you.
No injury. And it was serious and
It would have been bad. So if you're not safe by choice, you're safe by chance.
I got injury. That is my injury.
First aid. So.
You'll be good.
Oh, Snappy's injured.
Injured, yeah.
Oh, you got 5?
Oh, they were serious.
Get the dice off.
Oh, you got 2, so you're a miss.
Oh, 6.
Oh, no. Permanent disability.
Two out of our group here are permanently disabled. That's not a mental thing.
Okay, once you've done that once, I want you to go back the second time, go back down to the end of the table again, this time do it for crashes. What are you doing when you're driving? This is what, first one was what you were doing when you were doing your normal work for injury. But everybody got to do it twice. Do once for injury, once for crash. If it falls on the floor and you don't like the number, do it again. Okay, now realize these are not the actual mathematical statistics to work these, but it is a chance for you to figure out maybe what type of chances you're taking.
And it was really, really bad.
Other people.
All right, how are we doing? Everybody had a chance to do it twice? All right, cool. So think about this. You see now that goes up and down your table. You know who to take to Vegas with you and who not to. Okay? But think about that. How would that be if you got one of those permanent disabilities? What's the difference between an injury that is a permanent disability and one that's just a Band-Aid?
Lots of money, lots of emotional trauma, lots of pain.
One you was working with the risk they want to
Yeah. You're right. All those, it's all life-changing. Think about that. If you have something severe happen to you and all that, guess what? Who's affected by that? Number one, you are. Who else is affected by that? Your whole family. Maybe all the plans you've made. Maybe you're planning to go to Disneyland later in the month or whatever it is, and now you can't go to Disneyland. Now you can't go to Bryce Canyon. You can't hike around the things going on, right? Who else is affected by that? Your employer, your co-workers. Who else? Maybe people at your church, your community. All kinds of people are. So when we talk about something happening to somebody, it's a matter of it affecting a lot of people. Okay, you can't see the scar anymore, but it goes from here to here for me. I was cut by a razor knife, and it was pretty ugly, and I was lucky to be alive today. And now there's a quarter of an inch one way or the other, I probably wouldn't be alive today. So when talking about what the risks are for injuries, quarter of an inch is a whole different ballgame, right? How about in a crash? An inch or 2 inches? You ever almost hit somebody and it was really close? Okay, so all those things that make a difference. So my goal for you is to be safe by choice and teach your people to be safe by choice, not by chance. Every time they take those extra risks, what are they doing? Just rolling that dice to make a difference as you go through. Okay, so a couple of other things we go through here. Here's some different ways that when you have risks, here's some things you can think about. Okay, you can either reduce the risk, okay, like using a different type of a box cutter knife, and that got me. Now I got the ones that you almost can't touch yourself with, which is great. Okay, so I can reduce the risk to something else, either reduce the activity, reduce something else. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we talk about transfer the risk to somebody else or to something else. Maybe it's a machine. So if this happens, the machine's going to have a problem, but people are going to be safe. Is that good? Does it still cost us money when the machine breaks? Still costs us, but it's something we can get over, right? It's not that devastating effect. Here's what we end up doing a lot of times, accepting the risk. I see risk, that's good enough. That's where your acceptance level comes, right? What are you pulling out? What you're risking? What your reward is? Or you can just avoid the risk. So there's ways that you can manage this as you go through the process. And this here was by James Ritchie. He's got a whole system. He talks about each one of these, how you can reduce the risk, how you can transfer it to somebody else or something else, how you can either avoid it, or if you don't do any of these, guess what you've done? You accepted it. You said, okay, that's okay. That's a risk I'm willing to take to make things happen. We probably couldn't get much done in the world, got to tell you, as a safety professional, couldn't get much of anything done in the world if we were all covered in bubble wrap and walking around like this all day. We probably wouldn't get very far, right? So we're all going to have to accept some risk. But know what that is. That's what I'm trying to get you to think about, is what are the risks you're talking about? What are the risks you're doing, okay? Okay, here's another one of controls. This was put together by Martin Dean. And he says, first thing, and this is kind of what OSHA follows here. They say, if you have a risk, what's the first thing they want you to do? Get rid of it. If you have a risk of tires coming off when you're inflating the tires, don't inflate the tires. Have somebody transfer it to somebody else. But from your perspective, you've eliminated that risk, correct? Okay. Then it's not, you can substitute. So what are we going to do? Instead of using this high-powered air compressor, we're going to use this other one. Substitutions sometimes are great. Chemicals. Think about chemicals. Chemicals changed over the last 20 years. A lot more chemicals now, and they make them safer, right? What do we use to insulate our seedlings and stuff with? Asbestos. Good thing? Yeah. At the time, that was great. What about now? What's our thoughts on asbestos today? Yeah, no. We got other options, right? Fiberglass, different things. And who knows? 5 years, they'll say fiberglass is bad. I don't know. But all I know is that asbestos is now not the choice we make, so we substitute it with something else. Then you have different types of engineering controls where you isolate the things. So maybe if your air compressor is a problem because of noise, what do you do with it? You put it outside, you put it in a room by itself where now it's quieter for everybody else. Still just the same noise, but now you've put it in a controlled environment. So engineering controls can help us. Administration controls. So that's just saying, okay, we don't want the air compressor loud, so don't work over in that part of the building. If we don't build a wall, our administrative controls are just we're giving them policies, procedures, things like that. Okay, and that's good, but it's less effective. Should go down. Okay, and then you're going to say, okay, we're going to put you over there anyway. Now just wear a hearing protection. Okay, you can still get the work done. If you do it right, you can still be safe, but it's less effective. And then over here, your gimmicks, tricks, things like that. Stay away from this. If you get below this, I think you need to go back up and rethink your whole process. That makes sense? You don't want to be giving, hey, let's see who's rolling the dice, who's going in there today. Woohoo! Oh, you get the choice today. You're going in. You're going in. Woohoo! That's not really a safe way or a risk management process. So, okay? So, here's a great formula to use, and here's what you can do to put numbers to things if your people like numbers, is you have overall risk. Risk is made up of frequency. How often is that exposure happening? Is it a constant thing? That noise is always going on? Is it I only have to stick my hand in this machine to clear the jam once a day, once a week, 3 times a minute, whatever it is? What is my risk? What's the frequency? what's the likelihood, very similar to rolling the dice, what's the likelihood of you getting hurt? If you did put my hand in there, is am I likely or unlikely to get hurt? Most of these, I don't have a scale. I usually have numbers in here, and you make these up by operation, 1 to 5, 1 to 5, and then if you did get hurt, what would be the plausible outcome? Just a cut finger, losing a hand. And again, we would rate all of these 1 to 5, then you'd multiply them across. So if it was 5, 5, 5, it'd be 5 times 5, 25 times 5, 125. That's your highest risk. But if it's 2, 2, and 2, that's 8. Okay? Which one do you want to really have? The 8 or the 125? That kind of gives you a chance to prioritize how you want to fix things as you want to go through that. But just another way of looking at it. And if you, how many of you, your bosses have ever asked you, are you safer today or are you at less risk today than you were a year ago? You ever heard of that? Anybody ask you that before? How do you know? This can help quantify it if you want to put numbers to it, but it's different thing. And so what you do from here is you would then go back and say, okay, so I have these here to start with, and I'm going to go back to here and see what I can do, and then I'm going to rescore them. And it gives you just this, here's how much risk we reduce. Half the risk is going down, kind of a process. So, and frequency, likelihood, severity. I like this system, and it's really made my bosses in the commercial world pretty happy because they like numbers. Yeah, how much money are you spending, and how much risk do you have? It's hard to quantify risk unless you have some kind of a system like that. It really makes a difference. Then you can go to some other. Then you go to other options. There's all kinds of things. And again, you have copies of some of these in your book, just the type of things going on as you go through, and either different systems to rate how you want to do risk. Again, I'm trying to get you to think differently about risk. How do the insurance companies think about risk? Is it Matt?
Oh, it's Marty.
Marty. So how did you used to quantify risk?
Yeah, I know with insurance, obviously they start with your pricing point. They have actuaries that set up a pricing point based on the amount of risk that's involved, and so. But as far as clients go, how did I calculate risk?
Because you had to have somebody sign off. The underwriter said, "Is this a good risk or a bad risk?" So
Yeah.
what makes some companies good and some companies not so good as far as the risk levels?
I know on an individual standpoint, if somebody has some tickets and a lot of accidents, they're obviously a lot riskier of a client than someone who has a clean driving record. Same goes for insuring a home. If they've had 3 or 4 claims in the past 3 years, they're, by the law of numbers, they're going to be a lot riskier of a client to take on. And so
as we go through the UCIP here, how does that come back to the way we do business?
yeah, of course, whatever we can do to manage risk means that not only, most importantly, everyone's safer, but obviously that's more money available and more funds available for the members of the pool. And so,
Okay.
And I think a lot of times people think that skeptics think that it's all about the money, and it is, but it isn't, because you had mentioned earlier, the impact on everybody, the family and everything else, coworkers and whatnot. It's not just, of course it's about the money, but it's about more than just that. It's just easier. You were mentioning numbers and quantifying things. It's easier to quantify money than it is to quantify emotion.
Yep. I just had surgery on my foot. They had to break the bones of my foot and reconstruct it about 6 weeks ago. So I'm using the hobbling a little bit, but that's what's going on. And they say, "Oh, what's your pain level?" Okay, how do you quantify pain level? And the same thing with a lot of the risks we take, right? What are we doing? So, but really our job is, and for me as a safety geek, I guess got to tell you, my most important thing is I don't care if we spend all the money in the world, if we get our people home safe, we win the game. because we're affecting somebody's life. For you, those of you who are supervisors and managers, okay, think about it this way. The people working for you are somebody's son or daughter, correct? How would you want your son or daughter to be in the position that you're having your people in? I always ask my managers that. Would you allow your son or daughter to work here? I leave spouses out. That could be a good day or a bad day for the spousal world that you go through. But for kids or grandkids, what would I allow my grandkids to do? How would I do that? Somebody's doing the work that you're asking people to do, so just do that. I always try to take care of the people. You know, I've been doing safety 37 years, and you know, people ask me sometimes, hey, give me a one-word definition for safety, and I just say people. I take care of people, people take care of me. And I learned it as a manager. If I take care of my people will take care of me. If I don't take care of my people will take care of me. Okay? So as you go through the process, you're going to be taken care of by how you take care of your people, at least how they perceive that. But there are a lot of different formulas, a lot of things to go through as you're talking about that. So let's talk about dominoes. I got some dominoes set up front here. And each one of these have things on it, like this one here's for injuries, this one here's for crashes. So this one here, this says stuff like, know the traffic patterns, do all these stuff. They know their things. They're not distracted driving. They're not eating while they're looking around and scanning the areas. They know an environment they're driving in, etc. They're moving their eyes. We teach them every 2 seconds your eyes ought to be up in front of your vehicle. You can take them off for up to 2 seconds to check your mirrors or something else, but you ought to be looking, because that's where you're driving into, right? So we talk about that. So if they do all those things, if they don't do all those things, then guess what happens? And you have a crash, okay? Same thing with an injury. You have all these different things. You have training, you have the tools that they use, visual distractions. Any visual distractions you guys have when for your workers? People doing stuff in the middle of the streets, whatever it is going on, right? Okay, you got deadlines. They're in a hurry. I want to get home. Different things. And if you're do that. But now if we set this back up again, let's take a look at how we do this. If we have all these together. And what do we need to do? Do we need to take all these dominoes away? It would be great to take all the dominoes away. The problem is that sometimes our environment doesn't allow us to take all of them away. But let's say for driving, I take out have the proper following distance. Is that a problem with people driving? 70 miles an hour, bumper to bumper? Yeah, okay. What if I take that out? What if I say I'm not going to be distracted while I'm driving? Okay, so now when the chain event starts, things don't happen. So our goal would be to take out as many, hopefully get rid of all the dominoes, but there's some of them you can't get rid of, and some things. So think about when you have an injury or a crash. What are the things that happen? Could have one less thing could have made a difference, right? They were watching where they were going. Yeah, they were still eating their lunch while they're driving down the road or whatever, but they had good following distance. Is one enough to take the chain of events out of there? And I guess it would depend on how many more things we have in place. So what you think about risk management, again, my talk today is promoting a risk management mindset. That's what my topic is. And so the thing I'm trying to do is get you to think differently about risks. And if we can get rid of, it can be any of these along the way. It doesn't have to be the last two like it did before. I can take out this one and maybe this one, maybe this one. And one thing starts to happen, but we're okay. Car stopped right in front of us, but we're okay because we had the proper following time. We did whatever we were doing. That makes sense? So think about that as you're looking at dominoes, as you're talking about risks. Again, there's different ways to look at risk as you go through the process, and even if things keep on happening, eventually you're gonna have this here thing become visible, then you got a problem, right? Okay with that? Okay, so think about dominoes, how they're set up, and I know I didn't set up all of them. I could have set up a whole bunch more, but maybe we should make a pattern, said risk or something. But anyway, I didn't. I didn't have that many dominoes taken from my grandkids. So as we go through the domino effect, so let's talk about this for just a second. Here's an example about safety shoes. Any of you people have to wear safety shoes? Okay. Okay, whose choice is that to wear safety shoes? Theirs or yours? Okay, you as a company or you as an operation say, for what we're doing here, you need to wear safety shoes, right? Okay, so is it a risk for you if they wear safety shoes, or if they don't wear safety shoes, is that a risk for you in your operation? What kind of risk is it? The people and the money risk, right? We're talking about those two things. Okay, what kind of risk is it for the person? It's also a risk. It's also an injury and a money risk for them. Because if they're off work, they're not getting paid as much, etc., right? At least not where I'm from. You don't get paid as much if you're off. Okay. Okay. So who decides who has that risk acceptance level? Is that you? For your employees when you're talking about safety shoes, or talking about safety, talk about whatever you're talking about. Just take safety shoes example. When you're talking about this, what is your risk acceptance factor? Who's involved? Whose risk acceptance factors is it? Both parties, right? So if your employee comes to work and doesn't have safety shoes on, what do? Hopefully you do something, because if you don't do something, let's go back a little bit, then you have decided to accept that risk. They came to work like that. They come to work in flip-flops, okay? They've already decided they're going to accept that risk. What are you going to do? So as you don't do anything, then you decide that you're taking the risk. So we go back to the safety shoes, and think about that for everything you do. And whose risk is it? Hopefully you get your people involved and you decide whether you really do or don't need safety shoes. And if you do, you just take care of it.
The sad part is people take an accident before you decide, but usually everybody ought to have it.
You're exactly right. Usually, but here's one thing, I found one of the things. It's usually the fastest form of communication is what? Shop talk. It happens. I mean, if I'm out working with a UPS driver, if I'm out there and they see me observing them and doing that, I bet you within 2 minutes, every other person in the whole area knows that Doug Handy's out looking at different things for the risk. And I didn't say anything to anybody. UPS didn't send out a message to everybody, but every driver knows Doug Handy's out and about. Okay? Somebody gets hurt. Who knows about that? Everybody. And does everybody say, hey, I knew that was a risk. Now I'm not going to take that risk, right? But what else happens? Here's the other side of that. When they come in without safety shoes on and you send them home, do you think that message gets talked around the shop as well? Oh yeah. So you're exactly right. So whenever things happen, you can't go back and correct them. So the thing I say is let's get their biggest bang for the buck out of that. We're not trying to embarrass anybody or anything. Let's go away and put the facts on. Safety shoes are not worn here. We don't have to put names or anything else to it. Safety shoes weren't worn, and here are some of the results. This person is now going to be off work for this here, or has lost 3 toes, or whatever it's going to be, has a broken foot, and I tell you that's not a fun thing to have as you go through the process. And so now you can talk that up. So whenever you do have something happen, without throwing anybody under the bus, use it for your thing. Communicate that out as management to your people. And that's to give you a chance to talk to them about safety. Hey guys, that's why I want you to wear your safety shoes. So you can go home and play ball with your son or daughter, or go to that piano recital, or go to the opera, or whatever it is, you're going to or having or get to do, I don't say have to, get to do, then it's something that makes a difference. But we talk about risk acceptance levels. Again, we don't know whose risk acceptance level is what as they go through the process, right? So make sure you tell them what you want that to be. Questions? Okay, so as we start winding it down, I'm gonna be a little bit early getting done. You guys will be mad, won't you? Okay. But if you are, you come and talk to me. That's a risk. I am a second-degree black belt, so there are risks of saying saying things. But hey, you can say whatever you want. That's why I used to tell my karate students, you say whatever you want once. Then we can negotiate, or there are different risk levels involved. Okay, so risk is everywhere. So really, who determines what's acceptable? Right now, you get to determine what's acceptable, not only for you, but for your operations, for your family. Okay, you know, I see these people. They let their kids go to Europe. One or two kids by themselves go to Europe for, you know, what in the heck are you thinking? You don't. Yeah. If I'm going to send my kid to Europe, I'm going. And not because I have to babysit, because I want to go to Europe. But that's kind of the thing you go through. But involve people. Get them involved. Let them figure out what their acceptance levels is. Make sure you educate them on what acceptance levels is and what these risks are. Okay? Use some of these demonstrations, these visual aids if you need to. M&M's, do I say the big one? Because then you can eat all the M&M's. It's fun. You get down to just one. And I don't care what color it is. I'll eat it anyway. So, but it's a good thing. Okay? And then know that you have different options that you can do to minimize those risks and take care of those things. All right. Once you set your standards, I want to just tell you a quick story. There's a baseball coach named John Scalinos. Anybody hear of John Scalinos? He was a coach for 48 years at Cal Poly Pomona. Won 5 national championships. He has coached over 150 Major League Baseball players as he goes through, so he's a pretty successful coach. And they honored him last year. So what they did is this big banquet and all this, and invited him to give a couple of remarks to the people, and the people that were invited were not only just his family and his players and different things. There was coaches from around all the state of California, and when they had this dinner, and it was time for John to get up and speak. Now John's 78 years old, and he walks up to the podium, and around his neck on a chain is home plate. Okay, so he gets up there, he starts his talk, he goes through part of his talk, and the people in the audience were thinking, and he's 78, is he going a little senile? He's wearing a plate, home plate around his neck. What is that about? Somebody said something, and he said, oh, you want to know about home plate? Well, let me tell you. So what he says is this. Okay, how many of you are Little League coaches? T-ball coach, Little League, and then people raise their hand. He said, great. He said, how wide is home plate in T-ball and Little League? They didn't really know. He said, 17 inches. Okay? So how many of you are high school coaches? Raise their hand. How wide is home plate in high school? 17 inches. So he says, okay, American League ball, semi-pro ball, how wide is home plate? So he said, 17 inches? He said, right, 17 inches. How many are minor league coaches? Raise their hands. He said, how wide is home plate in minor leagues? 17 inches. It says, major league coaches, and there's a few there. He said, how wide is home plate in the major leagues? Guess what? 17 inches. He said, so here's what we're doing. In baseball, if you're going to coach baseball, you're going to get along in life with whatever you're doing, and you have standards set, it's going to stay the same. He said, just because you got a guy who can pitch 130 miles an hour but can't hit over this 17-inch plate, we're not going to make it 24 inches. That plate is always 17 inches as you go through the process. From T-ball to major leagues, 17 inches is how wide that plate is. So no matter what your talent is, whatever, we don't make exceptions for people. They can't throw it over this plate. You as a pitcher, you can say what you want, throw as fast as slow as you want, as high or low as you want. If you can't make it over that 17 inches, we don't need you. So think about that. As you set your standards and as you set your risk levels that you're talking to your people about, don't change them. Figure out what you want them to be. Make sure you have your risk management systems that you want to use in place. And 17 inches is 17 inches. Make sure that they know that, and make sure that you know that. Okay? You okay with that? Okay, that's if you get a chance, you ought to just Google that. That's pretty cool. It's a great little story from John Scuino's son on what he did. Okay, this is Mount Rainier. Okay, all the little pictures you see in there are pictures I've taken over this as I travel around. But this is a great quote that I really like. Your present circumstances don't determine where you can go. They merely determine where you start. So no matter where you're at right now, where do you want to go? How do you want to do things? What do you want to do with your risk management in your life? What do you want to do with the risk management in your operations? It's up to you. Lots of options, lots of things you can do. Just let your people know that you care about them. And if you don't care about them, fake it till you do. All right? I just got to tell you, some people are harder to care about sometimes than others. I get that. Been doing this a lot of years. But care about your people, at least as people. Their personalities aside, take care of your people, and they'll take care of you. So no matter where you're starting from right now, where do you want to go? How do you want to do things and make a difference? Okay? So for me, I've got things I want to take care of in my life. And have a lot of fun with my wife and I do. Some of you see my wife this morning. She was down here with me for breakfast. But we have a lot of fun taking care of our grandkids. In fact, I got to get home later tonight, so I got to take care of them tomorrow. Woohoo! And they are a bundle of energy. But that, what am I going to let them do? What's my risk management? What's yours? What's your risk level that you're going to accept? What are you going to do to make things happen? What are you going to stick your hand in a trap for? If you've ever stuck your hand in one of these and got it, it's very, very painful. Okay? But make sure you know what the risks are and make it happen for your people. Take care of your people. Make it safe for them. And we're in good shape. Yeah, that's picture me. Any questions? Comments? Yeah.
I'm the risk manager for Summit County. It's a new position. We haven't had a centralized risk manager. Our two highest claims items are deer strikes, which you can't really do much about in rural counties. But the other one is worker compensation claims for police officers during training. Yes. And they do the Rambo, He-Man, wannabe, and I actually want to talk to our Box Elder representative over there. And they like to kick down doors and jump over obstacles and things that in their job profile is very low frequency. But they go to these SWAT trainings and we always have a worker compensation claim. As non-sheriff groups think, eliminate those, reduce those, get rid of those. How do we, what would you say, and kind of open that up to the other people, what's a good way to try to mitigate that?
One of the things, again, the best thing I can think, the best tool you have in your toolbox, what is the best tool you have in your toolbox as management? It's communication. So I would figure out a way to communicate to them, guys, you're going to be doing this. When we, at UPS, we have a lot of people who some are only 17 or 18 years old working and moving packages inside the buildings to load the package cars, etc. And we have to sit down with them and say, guys, I don't care if you're Superman or not, here are our rules, here are the things you're going to do. And here's our risk acceptance levels for you to make sure that you're doing things. And I think for before they go to training, or when they go to training, maybe have a 15-minute thing and say, guys, let's level set here. Let's do a check. Make them some dice, roll some dice. Hey, gonna kick down this door. What's your chances of getting hurt? What's your frequency? Gonna do that once. How many times are you gonna kick down their door? Once a year? Twice a year, maybe? But when you do, what's your likelihood of you getting hurt? And if you did, what would your severity be? I would just have some kind of open, straightforward conversation. If you just make it as clear as you can. You know, I have too many people playing politics as far as how they want to word things. I just tell them straight out what they were doing. That's what I would do. That's what I've done in my operations for the last 37 years. Is I just straightforward with them. They know I'm going to be as nice as I can, and I'm not going to pull any punches with them. I want them to realize what they're doing. The other thing is I have them, my workers, I have them bring a picture, and we put it on the bulletin board of why they work safely. What are you going home to? Is it your family? And that's interesting. We have people bring their families. Some people would bring the grandsons or granddaughters' pictures. Some of them bringing a picture of a motorcycle. That's what they work safely for. So they can get home at the end of the day. What's in it for me type of a process. And at UPS we call it the most important stop. Okay, every time they make a delivery, they call it a stop. How many stops you have to be? 126. How many packs you got to deliver? 312, whatever it's going to be. But what's your most important stop? When they get home. They pull into the driveway. I don't care if it's for their motorcycle, their dog, their mother-in-law, whatever they're going home for, that's what they get. So that's what I would do. That's just my recommendation. Is let them know that you're looking at that. You've seen that as a risk management. Tell them that's one of your problems. You know, sometimes we keep things too close to our vest. What's your problem? We're not going to tell them about any of these injuries. We're not going to tell them about any of these things. Get the bang for your buck out of what you're doing, because as what has been found is statistics show that you can reduce your injuries and your incident rates, whether it's crash or injury, by 33% by just communicating and let people know. What do you mean Doug Handy did that? Well, he's an idiot. So I'm not going to do that. Okay, but now by just explaining that to them, they know what happened. That communication, 33% reduction pretty much across the board by just communicating well what you're doing. What's happened, what's in the real world, and what's your expectations. Again, you're going to follow to what your boss's expectations are, correct? So what's important to your boss? They'll tell you. So tell them. Questions? Are there questions, comments? Corey?
I just had a comment for Matthew, and I don't know, I'm fairly new to this, so I don't know if this would work or not, but like in football, in training camp, they don't go full force yet. They get conditioned, they work themselves up. The quarterback always wears a different jersey so they can't tackle and stuff like that, until they get to where they're strong enough and conditioned enough to handle it. Is there a way in these kind of trainings, because I have the same thing. My sheriff's office is always getting hurt in their trainings. Is there a way that we can require them to work easier until they get conditioned and do it over a few weeks, and then they can go full force? You guys know the answer?
You got to open it up.
You got to remember that you're dealing with humans that are going to be alpha and competitive. And this guy isn't going to let this guy outperform. Okay? The bottom line is you have to preach to them, you have to talk to them, you have to tell them the way things are. The sad part about this is that in law enforcement, you have to train in the arena in which you're going to perform. So that means that if you're going to have a SWAT team, the SWAT team's got to go out here and they got to practice doing what they're doing. And they got to do it with loaded weapons, they got to do it with all these risks that are here. And if you don't do it with those risks in place, when it comes down to the real thing, you're gonna have some very severe consequences come out of it.
Sprained ankle in training is better than a dead cop.
And quite frankly, that's true. And so I think my HR manager will back me up here. We've been doing mandatory participation in physical training for several years. And every year we do have some people that overstrain, get hurt, so on and so forth. We've had some fairly severe claims. However, they are getting less. The longer we go, the better condition we get our people in, the better off we are. What was it, Jim? 5 years ago we started this. And 5 years ago we had some pretty severe claims. We've gone to post standard, plus we've implemented a obstacle course. And the first year we did the obstacle course, we had 2 or 3 people get hurt. It happened. But the last time we did the obstacle course, I think we had 1. So, I mean, it progressively gets better, but you got to start somewhere, and unfortunately, and then, you know, the rolled ankle, I mean, really? I mean, that can happen walking across the parking lot. So, but I'm not going to kid you, we had 1, they were out on training exercise, and the guy had an accidental discharge and shot himself. So, it was a mess. And we got cussed because the guy had a loaded firearm. Well, you train, we don't walk around with empty guns. And then go time out, wait a minute, guy, you can't shoot me yet, I gotta load my gun up. So, I mean, it's the risk that you gotta take.
One of the other things is remember this, even your star players, you know, you talked to a Carl Malone, and I had the opportunity several times to talk to Carl and discussing a couple of things with him. But he was, you know, even the great player that he was, I mean, I don't think there was a better power forward, in my opinion, than in basketball. And yet, at the end of the day, who's coaching him? Jerry Sloan. You still seeing those confrontations, I mean, not necessarily confrontations, but you seeing those get back on the same page type of a thing. So even your best officers, your best people, you got to set the guidelines. If they don't know what their expectations are, they're going to do whatever they want. So set your expectations, and if they get out of line, you just need to say, hey, we're outside the line. Hey, now you're in the ditch. You need to stay between the gutters, guys, and here's what you do. You got lots of latitude between the gutters. Don't go in the bar ditches or the irrigation canals or whatever you call them, depending what part of the county and country you're in. Stay there, and it'll make a difference to you. So keep them in, because that's one of the things that you can do. As management, that's what we do. We have to help people, and hopefully we're leading them to be the right people. Okay? What else? Yeah.
You know, Dale's right that the training that the officers do is different than the training in a lot of other departments. I mean, our training that we're having here today is more mental. You know, we're thinking about theories and things that we could change, but when the officers are training, they're training muscle memory. They're training rote action. And then, so if they train differently than they're going to react in the field, they are not training well, because practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. If they practice at a lower level, they will perform at a lower level, and none of us want that. But something that surprised me recently at one of the Sheriff's Association meetings, I was talking with Commander Stevenson of Post and asked him who they used as they developed their training to work into a safety component into the training. And he said, well, we've never even thought of that. And they haven't had anyone look at the safety aspect of the training that Post provides to the counties. So I talked with Commander Stevenson, and I just met again with Workers' Compensation Fund last week, and Workers' Compensation Fund has offered to provide a safety consultant to Post to review their training program and try and add as much safety into the Post training that we can while still having the training be effective. So hopefully we can accommodate that, because Commander Stevenson was floored when I told him we rarely have an injury in the field with an officer, but we regularly have injuries during training, and that was something he wasn't aware of. So now that he's aware of it, they are taking a closer look at it. That they don't want to be the cause, but I think again, you hit it on the head. We'd rather have a little injury during training than a really bad injury out in the field.
Absolutely. Workers' compensation, great consultants, people there, and Utah Safety Council also could help you with some of that if you need some review and an overview on some of those things in real life type scenarios. And that is true. You know, when I teach first aid and CPR, I don't certify anybody unless they actually do the CPR on the mannequin. If you're not doing that, because what happens is when you get to a excitable situation, you go to what you actually have done, not to just a bunch of words that may or may not have floated in and out of your head sometime. So it's pretty cool stuff. So, but I would just make sure you have clear expectations and clear communication. There's no secrets in this, right? You know, they're affected by the money we spend. They're the people who are affected if they get injured or they have those issues. So I just keep them and think there's no, I call it, there's no secret squirrel stuff. Now, how many remember Secret Squirrel? If not, you go look up Secret Squirrel, but a Secret Squirrel is cool. You'd have a little squirrel and you have this briefcase, and when you want to go somewhere, you open it up, it turns into a helicopter. When he gets done, he folds back down his briefcase and he carries it. It's cool. Anyway, but there's no Secret Squirrel stuff in safety. It's about taking care of your people. So thank you for what you do, and please make sure you do. Any more questions, comments, derogatory remarks? If not, I think I'm done. All right, thanks.